PantheonAI presents Tariffs Hit Consumers, Intel Faces Trump, and Micron's Bullish Comeback. Welcome to the PAI Morning Briefing. It's August 11th, 2025, and I'm John.
And I'm Sarah. Good morning, everyone. It feels like a pretty active day shaping up in the markets, whether you're just dipping your toes in or you're a seasoned trader.
Absolutely. Let's kick things off with a quick look at the numbers to see where we stand. In the U.S., the S&P 500 is basically flat, hovering around 6388, down just a tiny fraction. The Dow is also seeing a slight pullback, down about 0.38%, near 44,017.
Right, but it's not all red. The Nasdaq is actually showing a little bit of green, up about 0.1% at 21,482. And over in the crypto world, things are looking pretty bright.
They are. Bitcoin is pushing up toward $120,000, up almost 0.7%, and Ethereum is climbing too, trading around 42.89. So really a mixed picture, a bit of a gentle ebb and flow to start the day.
Exactly. It's that kind of subtle movement that makes you want to dig into the bigger trends. And John, one of the most fascinating conversations right now is this whole idea of risk versus stability.
You're talking about that bold call from Morgan Stanley, right? The one that seems a little counterintuitive?
That's the one. Their big idea is that lower quality stocks, the ones people usually overlook, might actually be poised for some serious momentum. They're saying there's a single number expected on Tuesday that could be the catalyst for a huge market shift.
It's like the market is whispering, get ready for a plot twist. It's a fascinating theory. Betting on the underdog.
It really is. And speaking of plot twists, there's another major narrative coming from Goldman Sachs about tariffs. This one hits a little closer to home for most people.
Let me guess. It's not good news for our wallets, is it?
Well, they're predicting that the burden of tariffs, which businesses have mostly absorbed so far, is going to start shifting more and more to consumers in the coming months. So that next supermarket bill might have a little tariff surprise hidden in it.
Oof, that's a huge deal for retail and consumer goods. Okay, so we've got underdogs rising and potential price hikes. What's happening in tech? I heard there's a big story brewing with Intel.
There is. Intel's CEO, Lip-Bu Tan, is slated to meet with Donald Trump, which is a meeting carrying some serious political and industrial weight. Everyone's watching to see if this will genuinely help revitalize U.S. chip manufacturing or just be, political theater.
That's a high-wire act for the CEO. You have the pressure to bring chip manufacturing back to the U.S. mixed with intense political scrutiny. The stakes couldn't be higher, especially with global chip demand just exploding.
And on that note, we have to talk about Micron Technology. Their stock is climbing after some really upbeat guidance. It's a total rebuttal to the market pessimists.
I saw that. One analyst even called the guidance a clear slap in the face to all the bears. You don't hear language that strong every day. It just shows how fast sentiment can flip, especially in the semiconductor space.
It's a great reminder that the market can always throw you a curveball. So to tie this all together, we're seeing these recurring themes everywhere. A potential reevaluation of quality, stocks, the shifting burden of tariffs, major political plays in tech, and this wave of optimism in semiconductors.
It really highlights the need for adaptability, doesn't it? You have to be ready for the unexpected detours. Let's break this down by sector. In tech, that Intel story is front and center. This meeting with Trump isn't just a photo op. It could signal real government support for bringing chip production back home.
Which would be huge for investor confidence, not just in Intel, but across the domestic tech landscape. And that perfectly feeds into the broader semiconductor story with Micron. Their rally shows investors are willing to bet on innovation again.
Right. It's a vote of confidence that maybe the bearish sentiment was overblown. What about other sectors? How does this connect to, say, energy?
That's a good question. It's more of an indirect link. If tariffs start hitting consumers and changing spending habits, it creates ripple effects. Think about transportation costs for goods, which directly impacts fuel demand and energy prices. It's a subtle but important connection.
And for financials? I imagine the banks are watching that Goldman Sachs tariff forecast very closely.
They have to be. If consumer spending patterns change, it affects the risk models that banks and insurers rely on. They need to stay nimble. It's a delicate dance between global trade policy and a person's decision to buy a new TV.
And of course, none of this happens in a vacuum. The global implications are massive. A shift in U.S. tariff policy sends shockwaves through international markets. And a big U.S. move to support domestic chip making? You can bet competitors in Europe and Asia are watching that like a hawk.
Absolutely. It could force them to double down on their own investments or pivot their strategies entirely. It really complicates the geopolitical chessboard for technology and supply chains globally.
So, looking at some expert predictions, many are saying that if that Tuesday number delivers, we could see a real capital flow into those so-called lower quality stocks. The underdogs might actually start closing the gap with the blue chips.
It makes you wonder, what even constitutes quality anymore? Maybe our old definitions are becoming outdated in this kind of market.
That's the big question. And experts are also stressing that the tariff impact will be a slow burn. We need to watch consumer confidence indicators very closely to see when that pinch really starts to be felt.
Right. And in tech, there's this cautious optimism. There's hope that the Intel meeting could lead to real policy support, but also a healthy dose of skepticism. One expert joked that politics and tech are like oil and water, but sometimes you get a rare emulsion that actually holds together.
I love that. It perfectly captures the uncertainty and the opportunity. So let's quickly recap the key takeaways for our listeners.
Let's do it. First, the indexes are mixed, but crypto is seeing a nice little boost.
Second, Morgan Stanley is making us question what a quality stock really is, suggesting the underdogs might be ready for a comeback.
Third, Goldman Sachs warns that tariff costs are likely heading for the consumer's wallet, which could change spending habits.
Fourth, the Intel-Trump meeting puts the spotlight on the high-stakes intersection of politics and chip manufacturing.
And finally, Micron's rally is injecting a serious dose of optimism back into the semiconductor sector. All of this just proves how dynamic and interconnected everything is.
It certainly does. And as we wrap up, we want to leave our listeners with a few things to think about. For instance, what if this trend towards lower quality stocks is sustainable? How could that reshape portfolios?
And how might a shift in consumer spending, driven by tariffs, fundamentally alter the retail and financial sectors? These are the big picture questions we need to keep asking.
Exactly. A huge thank you to our information copilot, PantheonAI, for providing the deep analytics that make these conversations possible. Remember, you can always ask the AI copilot your own questions to stay ahead.
That's all the time we have for this morning. Stay curious, stay informed, and remember that learning about the market doesn't have to feel like a chore.
Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Have a great day, everyone.
PantheonAI, your information copilot.
Because learning shouldn't feel like a full-time job. Take care and see you next time.